All right, so this is the first. I'm gonna put first in quotation marks because we had an episode and the audio was the equivalent of dog shit. That is on
Doodoo
me.
feces.
It's on me. So we're gonna start again. Sadly, we won't have the immediate reaction. Maybe I'll put it in. So I thought of a name for it. Obviously, I'm Snake with a Hat. So what better to call this podcast than Snake with a Chat?
Hell yeah. Head ass. Oh my god.
We'll go down the list. So we have Twee,
Hello.
myself, Seth,
Hello.
and Andrew.
Hello.
And as was mentioned before, it is Andrew's birthday. So this is a special first episode.
Happy birthday, Andrew.
Happy birthday, Andrew.
Merry Christmas.
Oh god. Thank you. I can't. No, never mind.
So obviously this is going to go down as the highlight of your birthday this year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were thinking about just sort of like having the topic bounce around and go whatever. And I think that was good, but I think it's better if we focus in on something. And we decided to do some work stories or just anything that like fits in that category.
I have way too many.
Like a lot.
Actually,
Yeah.
can we start? Can we start
I have
with
4 jobs worth of work stories over the span of like 4 years.
I'd like the start of one. It's a short story, but it comes from Andrew. Andrew, can you tell me about the time that one of your coworkers completely ignored you in the best way possible?
Oh my god. He's fucking deaf and he's got a cochlear implant and he sucked in the back room because he wouldn't listen to anybody. And I was like, oh, listen's a strong word, but I was trying to like tell him like, hey, you got to put the security tag horizontally an inch from the barcode, because if you don't, then when they scan it, it's like, oh no, there's nothing to scan here. So they have to manually put it in because we didn't have cashiers. The other store had cashiers because it was a combo store. And as I'm talking to him, he just unplugged the cochlear implant.
Nice.
That man literally looked at you and hit the mute button.
I literally dropped everything and I was like, I'm taking my 15. I can't handle this.
I feel
Man's
it
literally
was
said, I'd
followed
rather
by
be
the-
deaf than listen to you.
It was followed by the kid with diabetes because his friends called him Beto because of the diabetes.
Oh,
and
of course.
I thought it was because of his libido.
Because as I'm dealing with being muted, I just hear him yell, "Yo, Beto, go eat a donut. You got those stupid dark rings under your eyes."
Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
god.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pleasant workplace.
I don't know how you just reminded me of this, Andrew, but I just remembered I was telling my mom this story a couple days ago, but I work at a GameStop, as you guys know, but the audience does not. And
Yeah, Twee's the only real gamer here.
yeah, I'm the only real gamer. I was behind the register, and my coworker, Henry, he was on the floor, and he had the phone. So if anybody called, then he would be the one that answered it. So he got a call and he answered. And he's like, "Yeah, hello." Oh, okay, all right. And then he hung up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, what was that?" And they were like, "Oh, somebody was complaining. They bought some PlayStation currency and they were given Xbox currency." And I was like, "Oh, okay." They were like, "Yeah," and they were talking about who did it, and I was like, "Uh-oh, did I do it?" And so I asked him, it was like, did they say who did it? They're like, "Well, they didn't know their name, but they said short and bald, and you got a lot of hair, so I don't think it was you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I knew exactly who it was. And it was just I have a manager, and he is only a manager because another person wouldn't be one. So he doesn't know how to do. He doesn't know how to do anything. He may or may not commit tax fraud, and he is just incompetent. And he was the one that gave them the wrong amount of currency, the wrong type of currency rather. And there's nothing we can do about that. So he kind of just scammed somebody.
I was gonna say there is a difference between wrong amount and wrong type.
You probably did both, to be honest.
Which I was telling Seth the other night. This is a story I don't know if Twee ever heard. Andrew was there to witness it. Not a work story, but it goes off the same premise of GameStop sort of fucking someone. So when I went to pre-order Destiny 2, I pre-ordered it at a GameStop because I was like, I want the pre-order exclusive Cade. I don't know why. I was just like, I want that. I'm gonna sideball immediately. I never got the pre-order exclusive from GameStop. But I traded in some games and paid half, and they were like, yeah, you can just pay the rest when you go to pick up like the code when we're allowed to give it to you to like pre-install before the game releases. And I'm like, all right, cool. So this is like, I don't know, I'd say it was probably like a few days before Destiny 2 releases. I was on campus without a car, and Andrew's like, I'll take you to the GameStop, and then we head back to my dorm. So we get to the GameStop, I pay the rest, and the dude's like, yeah, the code's right there on the receipt. And I'm like, okay. So I look and I'm like, oh, there's 2 codes. I was like, oh, maybe the like digital exclusive, whatever, like deluxe stuff is on one code and one's on the other. So I go to the store on my Xbox. I enter the code, and it immediately just pops up with $50 credit as an Xbox card, like,
oh my god,
gift card. And I go, and then I type in the other one, and it's the same. I'm like, so I just paid GameStop for Xbox gift cards to then go on and pre-order the digital deluxe edition, is what they did, which they had no way of telling me that beforehand. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't care. I want the game. So I go to digital deluxe edition. I hit purchase. I hit confirm, and it starts to download. And I'm talking to Andrew, and I process that in the corner. It says I still have $100 currency. Oh. And I just pause and I go, wait a minute. And I looked at my phone, and it was just like large withdrawal from checking. And Xbox defaulted to charging my debit card instead of using the currency. So I'm sitting there like, fuck. Mind you, at the time, I only had, outside of the money from pre-ordering, like only another 100 something to my name. So that was all my extra money.
It was a very panicked half hour.
It was a half hour with probably the best Xbox customer support employee I've ever dealt with. Because normally, as everyone probably knows, the one thing that concerned me is Xbox can't refund digital purchases. So I was like, I literally don't know what they're going to do here. And in my mind, I'm like, hey, it could probably just be as simple as we're going to refund you, but then also take all of your, Xbox currency from the gift cards. I'm like, that would make the most sense. But like, I ended up having to go through a process of stopping the install, deleting it, and they like actually took away the license that I had, and it was out of my library. And then the guy's like, you can just rebuy it, but make sure you use the currency. I'm like, yeah, I will make sure about that. But also afterwards, all my anger got directed into the fact I was like, what the fuck did GameStop just give me 2 Xbox gift cards? Why?
I mean,
that's how GameStop works. Because I'm sorry, Tweet, but there's a reason they're going bankrupt.
All right, then let me tell you something.
There's definitely a reason. No,
let me tell you something, dude. This piggybacks into fucking Jeff's story. Oh, GameStop fucked me.
Quick, let's take all of our anger out of the
Snake with Chat podcast episode 1. Fuck GameStop.
I just want to say right now that while I worked there, I'm not gonna say anything else about any other GameStop. But at my GameStop, while I'm working there currently, we have codes that actually are the code for a digital video game.
Oh, I've never had that.
Guy was just lazy, or their GameStop was just whack. I don't know, man.
I mean, this GameStop was pretty whack.
This GameStop I go to, though, like, it's partially because the main manager was kind of like, peace out, I'm actually gonna run a store now. So we went to a different, to the one on the other side of the town over where I live.
The food court.
And he was my favorite manager. Like, I wouldn't just go to GameStop to get a game. I'd go there and he'd be like, hey, let's talk about this. I'm like, well, shit, I guess I'm gonna talk to you. And he was really cool. Anyways, he knew I was hyped for Persona 5 Royal. So he was like, hey, you want to get the fucking like deluxe edition? I was like, you bet your fucking ass I do. So I threw them. Yeah, so I threw the money down for it, and I was like, all right, let's go. March 30th, 2020, releases in North America. I was like, all right, bet. I don't like COVID literally shut down my campus. I don't have to work. Like, I can just be yucky and be like, just be degenerate and play a Persona all day. So I go there, I'm like, hey, I'm here to pick up my game. They're like, oh, well, we don't have it. I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, COVID like messed up the mailing system, so it's like we're not getting Final Fantasy Remake, Resident Evil 3, and Persona 5 Royal for like a couple weeks. I was like, fuck, all right. But he was like, well, to make it easier for you, since you drove out here, do you just want to pay for it? And then we'll just call you when it gets here. I was like, well, I guess. So I paid the rest off. Good. No. Almost 6 months later, I don't get my fucking game. And I found out about this because I would call every other week, like 2 to 3 weeks, like, hey, I'm just checking in. Like, my game ever come in? Because I have friends that picked up the Resident Evil 3 and their Final Fantasy Remake copies. And I just wonder how's Persona looking. They're like, no, we don't got it. I was like, oh, well, shit. I don't know. Call me. And some may say I'm a fool, and I agree. I am a fool for waiting like almost half a year. But
yeah,
in the end, I just went up there and I said, hey, I showed them the receipt, and they're like, oh, we see the problem. So what ended up being the problem was they never shipped my copy. The reason for that being
specific copy?
Yeah, my specific copy, like the deluxe edition. The reason? Dumbass who took my fucking money put it in the computer as I came and picked up my copy. I didn't pay the game. I came and picked it up. Like, in the sense of like, don't send us a copy because he claimed it. So yeah, so they never sent it to the store. So I was like, well, I'd rather have a refund. And they're like, well, we can still compensate, but we don't know when it'll be shipping. I was like, no, I think I prefer the refund. And then at the same time, I was picking up. Yeah, I was like, no, I think I prefer my money back. But at the same time, I was like, I think I'm gonna pick up Ghost of Tsushima as well. Great game, by the way.
Yeah, great
game. And he was like, well, we have we have the deluxe edition for $160 if you want to just pay for that. I said, no, I think I'm gonna get the regular copy and my refund. And I was pissed off because I was like, damn, my boy left. Like, he left managing this place because he couldn't handle you guys. Like, you guys are just you don't know what you're doing. And they fucked up my order, and I was like, god damn it. So I was really pissed off, and I came home and I was like, well, shit, where am I gonna get a copy now? So I was like, all right. Went to a couple websites, went to a couple other stores, and they were like, no, we don't got it. I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? So I was like, you know what? Last resort. Maybe Amazon has something. Same fucking edition I paid like $120 for. They had it on Amazon for $60. I was like, cool. Ordered it, and it was like, all right, it'll be there in a week. 2 days later, I get a knock on my door. It's there, and I was like, yup, let's go. Gamer moment.
Yeah.
And I've had the game for a week, and I am not like, I have no shame in saying I've had the game for less than a week, and I've already have 70 hours in.
Oh man, hey, that's crazy. You should talk to someone we know.
Yeah. So that's my experience with my experience with GameStop. Just literally just saying, hey, fuck you, we're gonna lead you on. And I would call and be like, hey, like, I have this, and they're like, no, you don't. Like, well, shit.
All I remember about when I went to also go pay for Destiny is the guy was Australian and kept telling me I was using my debit card wrong in the machine, when in fact he was not handling the machine correctly.
You had a smudge of dirt on your debit card and it wouldn't be red, so I had to pay the $8.
All of the
Happy birthday.
All the bad GameStop experiences that you can imagine.
Yeah.
They have coalesced into a singular being known as Basil, who is one of the managers at my he's the short bulb.
Can't wait for him to get a hold of this podcast.
Oh god. He's the one that, gave the wrong currency. He has done a lot of things, but I don't want to talk about him right now. I just want to say the one thing that has been worse than working with him was my old boss. I got hired like a year and a half ago now at this point, and I, even though I didn't actually have a job before GameStop, the boss, the person who's currently working there, I'll just call her Q. She just immediately hired me for no reason because I had no work experience. She was just like, all right, yeah, him, you live close. So I got hired, and the first week I worked with my assistant manager, and he was great. He's still cool. We refer to each other as work best friend. So he was great. And then the next time I worked with another manager, she doesn't work there anymore, but she was also great. And then I worked with the big boss, Q, and I got there. This is my 4th day working ever, basically, but also my 4th day working at GameStop. I don't know how to do anything.
Oh no.
And she's like, all right, cool. She's just behind the register. She's like, you just be on the floor, do whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just sitting there.
So you play the demos your whole shift.
Yeah, I play the demos the whole shift. No, I was answering phone calls, making sure that the games were in alphabetical order, answering people's questions. And then she's like, you get behind the register. And I was like, okay, I've only done this once before, but I'll do it. And she goes into the back room. So I'm just sitting there on the register, and some dude comes in, and he's like, hey, I want to buy stuff. And I'm like, cool, that's why I'm here. And so he comes, and he's trying to buy some game. The game's irrelevant, but he's like, I also want to use my points. And I'm like, okay, put in your phone number. And he's like, oh, I ain't got a phone.
Oh no.
So immediately I'm like, yikes. And I was like, okay, then what's your email? He's like, I don't know what the email is for my account. So I'm double yikes. And he's like, here, I got the number of my card. This the GameStop like rewards card y'all gave me.
Of all the things to have on hand, he's like, yeah, I got this like 28-digit long code.
Yeah.
What
so
the
he's
fuck?
like, yeah, I got this 20-digit long code on the front of the card. And I was like, do you have the actual card? Because if he did, I could just swipe it. Or if he had the app, I could scan it. Yeah. He had neither of those. He had the number. I have been behind the register once. I don't even know if that was a viable option for him to put that in and for me to get his account up. It is, by the way, but I didn't know that back then. And so I'm like, I put the code in. I guess I put it in wrong because I've been behind the register once. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know how to help you. You want to just wait for her? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll wait for her. She know how to do it. She the one that set up my account. She made it for me. I'm like, oh, she's not supposed to do that, but okay, you say it. So I'm just sitting there. I leave his thing on the first register, and I go to the other register, and I'm helping people out. And this dude's like, man, go get her. And I'm like, fine, I'll go get her. So I knock on the door. No answer. I don't have a key to the back door because I'm baby. So I can't get back there. So I knock on the door for a while, and she's not answering. So I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. This guy's going off on me saying I suck at my job. I did, but like I couldn't do anything about what was happening in that situation. And so he leaves. This took like 30 minutes of him being there and me not being able to help him. After those 30 minutes happened, she comes back out. And she was like, yeah, I was on my break. I went to sleep. What happened? And I'm like, I relayed the whole thing that I just said to you guys. And she's like, that's cool. So she's standing near the back door. And she kind of just moseys on over from the back door to the front door of the shop and just walks out of the store and gets in her car. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm just sitting there trying to do my job. And then the assistant manager comes in and he's like, oh, hey, Max, how you doing? And I'm like, oh, hey. She's like, where's Q? And I'm like, in her car, asleep. He's like, what?
Oh, damn, you snitched.
Damn, you snitched on her.
Yeah,
That's fucked up.
she's his boss though, so I didn't think it was snitching.
Fair enough.
So, so I was like, yeah, she in the car asleep, and he's like, dang. He's like, wow, oh, I'm surprised you're still here. And I was like, oh yeah, I got 24 hours this week. And he's like, 24. And then he went outside after her and yelled at her.
He didn't give
Oh
a
my
fuck she
God.
was sleeping. He cared that you got 24 hours.
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh my God.
There's one thing I sort of miss. So I've only ever had one customer facing job my entire life.
Lucky.
Lucky.
And no. You're going to hate me even more. It was only for on the weekends for a month and a half.
I know what it was.
Andrew knows what it was. So it was a local like supermarket, and I got hired, mind you, with like no prior experience. I was like, all right. So because I heard
Hey, that sounds familiar.
through someone I know that they were like, they need someone, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, it turns out they needed someone to close and open the delis on the weekend. So I had to learn the ins and outs of essentially soloing a deli at a supermarket.
What were your splits?
God, it was fucking bad. I could clean a meat cutter in about 10 minutes. Specifically,
That sounds really slow.
I have no like knowledge.
Okay, I'll explain this.
Said
You
that.
have to like sort of take it apart to clean it.
Yes, I figured
Oh.
you have to take it apart.
So I only have
Cleaning a
I
big gun.
I only have a few stories, but what amazes me is how many stories I have in that short period of time. I'd like to
you
share
know,
my
the shit job.
Because meat freaks.
So it was a garbage fucking job, to be honest, because like obviously it's handling a deli by yourself, and because of health regulations, which I understand, if I had to swap between deli meats and cheeses to fish case, swap the gloves, and if someone specifically asked me to, I had to swap my gloves no matter what I was doing. One person had me swap them between every single thing that they purchased. They purchased 5 things. But I'd like to tell the story of my favorite man, which I'll only describe as the cheese man.
Oh hell
Me?
yes.
So
Dude, I'm sorry I visit your job.
so I start, it's like my second weekend there. The guy who was training me is like, I'm gonna be out for like the first few hours that day, and he's like, it shouldn't be a problem because nothing big happens. That's just like literally you're just running the deli. There's no cleaning or like setting up shit like that. So I get in, you know, essentially it's like I tag out the person working there, and they're like, thank God, get me out of here. So and it was pretty slow, and then this guy comes up and he asks for 1.5 pounds of American cheese. I'm like, you know what, that ain't that weird. It's just 1.5 pounds of cheese. So I do a slice, and I'm like, is this thickness good? And he goes, a little bit more. And I'm like, all right. Is this good? He goes, a little bit more. At this point, the man has me cutting 1/4 inch thick slices of American cheese.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, no. You're going to love this man. So I do that, and he's like, oh, perfect, thank you. Can you run the rest like that? And I was like, yeah. So meanwhile, I'm using the fucking like meat and cheese slicer, and it just starts going, because like the fucking chunk would fly off by the wheel.
You're just cutting bricks.
So I
Brick
weigh
cheese.
it. I weigh it. It's like 1.75 pounds instead of 1/2, and he goes, that's fine. Because like I feel like he understood that I was new there, so. He was one of the few people that wasn't just like, you suck at cutting meat. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit. I can't eyeball 2 pounds off the top of my head. So I do it. The thing that sucked, by the way, is the way you print the labels for those is like, you know how have any of you worked?
Is it like a sticker?
Well, yeah, but like you guys, have any of you worked like registers at like a supermarket before?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how like if you have to enter specific
but-
produce has a code.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it works for me too.
Yeah. I just had a giant Excel, like a horribly laid out Excel sheet to get the specific cheese and meats and shit like that. So it takes me a second to find it because they printed it at like 8-point font.
God.
I type it out, print it, get it in the bag. The bag could barely do the little Ziploc shut because of how much cheese was in this. And I hand it to him. And mind you, the guy is like just happy as can be. So I was like, honestly, weird as this was, I was like, have a nice day. And he's like, you too. And then, you know, I'm doing stuff. Some lady comes by, asks for the prices of all the fish when they're clearly labeled, and then goes, okay, and then walks away. And then he comes back and he goes, is that all you have for pre-sliced and like blocks of cheese out there? And I'm like, oh, we have some on that center island if you want to look. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he comes back like about a minute later and he goes, you don't have anything that's already like pre-cut for that Swiss? I was like, no, but I can cut you some just like I did with the American, no problem. And he goes, okay. Well, I need it for fondue, so can you cut it any thicker than that? And I'm like, I can't cut it thicker than the 1/4 inch on the slicer. And he's like, oh, well, I was looking for like a 2-inch block of fucking Swiss cheese.
God damn, are you serving fucking Wallace from Wallace and Gromit? So,
mind you, the only other guy who I would work with is the guy running the kitchen area who had already left at that point. And I'm like, fuck, it's like my technically 3rd day working. I don't know where any of the stuff is. So I told the guy, I was like, I can get a knife and just eyeball it. And he goes, oh, well, he goes, if it's not that much of a problem, can I get 2 blocks of cheese like that? And I was like, do you want just the whole block of Swiss? Like, I was like ready to just hand him the Swiss over the counter. So I clean a knife and I start cutting it. And like, I don't know if you've ever cut through a whole ass block of hard Swiss cheese. He's just watching me with a big smile as I struggle. I think the dude was pranking me because like I'm struggling to cut through this, and I finally get the huge chunk. I finally get the huge chunk, and I hand it to him, and he's like, "Thank you again. You've been a real help." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'll talk to someone about us stocking more of the pre-slice." And he goes, "Oh, that'd be great," and just leaves. and I tell, and like, you know, the guy who's training me comes in about like a half hour later. I tell him about that, and he goes, "Oh, that guy?" And I was like, whoa, that guy? You mean you've experienced him? He goes, he comes in like once a month and just gets a fuck ton of cheese. I was like,
me, I went to your work.
I'm gonna put it this way: there was a very small list of reasons for me to stay working there. He was one of them.
Jeez, man.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum is what I will call, in the nicest way, the baloney bitch.
Also me.
That's just one of those things where it's like people are very picky about their lunch meats.
Yeah.
This woman wanted like a 1/4 pound of like every type of bologna that we carried.
Holy shit.
And she would ask me, can you clean off the slicer between each kind? And I'm like, motherfucker, it's just bologna. You don't need me to clean the bologna residue if I'm going to cut more bologna.
That's very annoying and yuck.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Here's the thing. That stuff was more like, it felt like the annoying levels in a Flash game, because you're just like, I just gotta get fucking through this, and I can just, you know, pass it on and move on from this person. But
yeah,
your face wasn't an OSHA violation though. That's the good thing.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think the only bad part about that job was I came in one Sunday because they were like, hey, we know you normally close on Sundays, but can you come in and open? And I was like, yeah, screw it. I mean, like, I'm probably gonna have to open at some point, so might as well just get it over with now. So I'm coming in, you know, opening, like cleaning shit and getting it ready. What they didn't tell me until it was like 10 minutes till the store opens. Oh, bro, you gotta go get all the shit out of the downstairs walk-in freezer and stock the fish case and make it look nice. And I was like, you what?
So you have to go out to sea and catch some fish for the display.
Dude,
you have half an hour.
Oh my God. And I was like, what? And then I looked at the fish case because I was so busy I didn't process. It didn't even have ice.
Jesus.
I was like,
oh God.
I was like, this is gonna be a fun half hour. And the guy working the kitchen's just like, I'll get the ice, go get the fish. And I'm like, fuck. I got 10 minutes till we open. So like, I'm still finishing getting the fish case ready. And this one person comes in and they see me clearly handling a shit ton of fish. And they're like, is that roast beef on sale? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be with you in 1 minute. They're like, can you cut me a slice to try? I'm like, yeah, just give me like 1 second. If you want to go do some other shopping and come back, I'll have it ready by then. And they were like, okay. And then they just stood in front and watched me fucking pack a fish case for like 10 minutes.
I just want to make sure you're getting on.
Oh, no. I finished packing the fish case, and as I go to walk the tray back into the walk-in freezer, they're like, the roast beef? And I'm like, fucking give me a second. the one person
really roast beef, dog.
The one person I knew before going into that job, she worked the produce, just stocking shelves. And I'm like, you have the easiest fucking job. She's like, yeah, I know. That's why I picked it. I was like, you bastard. Oh god, that job was fun. I ended up actually working there again later down the line.
You freak.
For one day. Do you know why? Because the day manager at the time when I was working, Cheese Man, dude, I love Cheese Man.
I love Cheese Man.
The at the time day manager when I was working ended up becoming the store manager, and me and him were chill. Like he always made good company, and he was like, hey, we need someone to run. They do like once a summer like fundraiser, and it's a hot dog stand. Bro, that one day that summer, I was the fucking glizzy slinger.
The Glizzys
slinger. Glizzers.
Do you know what the highlight was too? He goes, yeah, it's a charity thing, so we can write it off. And it was honestly a way for them, like towards the end of the summer, to push a lot of the like stock they had to like not go bad, because they order a shit ton of hot dogs for 4th of July, and it was always like the weekend after 4th of July. He goes, surprise, the charity is you just work the hot dog stand and help us clear out stock. You get to keep all the profits. I was like,
oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, mind you, they sold everything super cheap to get rid of it. So I was like, yay, $50 for like, for like 6 hours of in the sun working a hot dog cart.
That's not bad.
Like, but the store manager, he's like, you actually cleared a lot of the stock. Like I was working fast and I was like making conversation with a lot of the customers. Motherfucker throwing a $25 Gamestop card on top of that 50.
Hey, come on,
and you to hell for $25.
And I went, and at first I was like, damn, $75. At the time, like, mind you, I was like, I don't have a current job, so I was like, that's a whole ass game.
You're like, maybe I should do more work with the Glizzy stuff.
Listen, if things fall through with graphic design, I'm just gonna go right back to slinging.
You go back to slanging that Glizzy.
Yeah.
You reminded me of 2 stories. They're both pretty short, but it's just going out of your way to just make sure one person is good. Reminds me of this one time. This couple came in, and both of them very obviously they weren't gamers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're a gamer. No, they were very obviously casual game players.
Yeah.
And he only bought a Switch because it was the cheapest one. And so he was like, "Hey, you got any good 2-player co-op games for the Switch?"
And you handed them snipper clips.
Snipper clips is only digital, but
it's not. It's physical.
It isn't. We don't have a fucking.
I literally have the physical copy.
Did you get it from limited game runs, dude?
I don't know.
But I did recommend that, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds like some baby shit. I don't want that."
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Word, okay." He was like, "You got any Call of Duties on the Switch?" And I was like, "No, there isn't any Call of Duties." And I was sitting there racking my brain, trying to figure out a manly game, quote unquote, for the Switch that was also co-op. And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Hey, there's this Resident Evil combo pack. You get Resident Evil 4 and 5. And he was like, "Resident Evil, what the heck is that?" And I'm like, "It's a third-person shooter." And he was like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, and it's a horror game too." He was like, "Horror?" I was like, "Yeah, with zombies." He was like, "Oh yeah, zombies and shit. Oh man, I love that. Like with the old Call of Duties and shit." And I was like, "Yep." He's like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna get that." And I was like, "Just so you know, Resident Evil 4 isn't co-op, but Resident Evil 5 is." And the way that this thing was set up is that you buy it because those are too big to be put on a little Switch cartridge.
Yeah.
So you buy it, you get Resident Evil 4 physically, and a download code for Resident Evil 5.
Didn't they do that with like a Final Fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also did it with Overwatch. If you buy Overwatch for the Switch, you just get a download code and the case.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but I was like, yeah, I'm let you in on a little trade industry secret, right? So if you don't want to play Resident Evil 4 by yourself, you only want the co-op game. What you could do is you could go home, take this code, download the co-op, Resident Evil 5,
yeah,
and come back and return Resident Evil 4, and you get to keep Resident Evil 5. And he was like, "Oh, word, I could do that." And I was like, "Yeah, as long as you got the receipt." He's like, "Nah, thanks, big homie." And he looked around. He noticed I was the only one on the register. There was nobody else in the room with me besides me, him, and his girl. And he went, "Hey, big homie, you smoke?" And I was like, "Sometimes." He's like, "Hey, bro, when's your next break? Meet me behind the store. I'll give you blunt, bro, for helping me out, bro."
Bro,
And I was
shout
like, "Oh,
out.
I ain't got a break today." And he's like, "Dang, man, I was sure about to hook you up." And I was like, I feel like it was laced. I feel like it was about to be laced. I don't know why.
You had a plug.
Tweet, you would have walked out behind that GameStop on your break, and you would have caught like a knife to the side, and you would have been like, "Give me all your Resident Evil 5 codes."
Give me all the Resident Evil 5s. But the Cheese Man story reminded me of one of the regulars that we have. We have a few, but none of them are as good as Spider Kid.
Ooh.
Oh no,
I'm interested.
I'm interested.
Unfortunately, before I started working, Spider-Man for PS4 came out, and one kid, I say kid, but he not actually, yeah, he's a kid. He's like 17 now, I think. So when Spider-Man came out, I think he was what, 14? I think that's how old that game is.
I think it's like 2 years.
But
It's like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's
so
like 14, 15, whatever.
He was like 14 or 15. He came into the store. This is what my my store, like, assistant store leader told me. He came into the store by himself and was like, "I want the PS4 Spider-Man edition." And my store leader was like, "Oh yeah, you want to get that? You sure?" I think Spider-Man's rated T for teen, right? So you got to be 17 to get it.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So you gotta be 17. Oh, really? Hold up. T for teen is 13 then, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're right. Thanks, Andrew.
You work at
You know games better
GameStop.
than me. Haha. I just ask if I see M, I ask for ID. I don't look at the number. Anyway,
Fair enough.
he was like, "Oh yeah, you want this?" And he was like, "Oh, you just old enough to get this." But the store leader was like, you sure you got enough money for that?" And Spider Kid was like, "Yeah, I do." And he pulled out $245 in cash and was like, "Is this enough?" And my store leader was like, "Yeah, I guess it is." So this 14-year-old kid came in and bought Spider-Man PS4 edition and the special edition Spider-Man PS4 by himself.
I respect
Oh,
it.
he bought a whole PS4 for like $240. I guess they are cheap now.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's a nice, like the Spider-Man PS4 is like nice. It has like a terabyte of data.
Nice. It's all terabyte. It's all red. And
I
it's
will
got,
admit,
white
the
Spider-Man on it.
themed PS4s were always a step above the themed Xboxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Have you seen the God of War PS4? It's awesome.
Yes.
It's nice. But Spider Kid, after that day, became like a regular, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met him. And every time he would come in, the first time he came in, I didn't recognize him. I was like, "Oh, hey, welcome," because I didn't know him. And my store leader was like, "Spider Kid, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Spider Kid," and he's like, "Yeah, that's me." And he's so tall and lanky, but also you could physically tell he was young. But his height lied to you. And I was like, "Why you call you Spider Kid?" And that story was relayed to me. And he just came in and was just vibing. He didn't buy anything. He was just there for the whole time. And he would come in regularly and not buy anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why is he a regular?"
That literally sounds like Seth and his GameStop friend.
Yeah, but when I go there, like I said, I'm there to get a game. But then I don't want to name drop him, but I'll call him Joe. Joe would be there, because he ran that store. He was a manager, so he had to work often. He didn't run the store, but if he saw me come in, he'd be like, "Ah, shit, here he comes, my boy," and And so we would just talk. He was really cool, so I didn't really mind like taking a little bit of time out of my day to like be like, well, fuck, I plan on getting this game and going home to play it, so I can spare like 20 minutes to talk to him.
Yeah.
Cool,
There's no problem with doing that. Like it was just that I noticed because he literally would not buy.
Yeah, he would just come in there and be like, "What's up?"
He would come in and just hang out. And one time he came in and it was Halloween, and
Please tell me
it was Halloween soon, rather I should say.
Please tell
it
me
was
he was
Halloween
like
tomorrow, so he came in and he was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh, what you gonna do? You just gonna loiter today?" And he was like, "No, I'm gonna buy." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he pulled up his phone, and apparently, and I didn't know this, and I worked there, by the way. We got Spider-Man Far From Home replica mask thing. We got Spider-Man web slingers and a Spider-Man statue. And he came in and was like, "Gimme, run it." And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So I went in the back and I searched for them, and lo and behold, we had all three of them. And I came out and I was like, all right, it's like to $120 for these, and then the statue's $50. He was like, okay. And I was like, you good? You was like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, let me. And then you just pull out his wallet, and the famous money came out, and I was like, oh my God, Cody wasn't lying. He really just is stacked for no reason. He just paid for all of it in cash.
Bro,
and
what
then
the fuck
like,
you mean?
Right.
He just is Spider-Man.
He's Spider. He came back Halloween, dressed up and all of that. He had a full-on Spider-Man suit that fit him, and he came in and we were all like, "Oh my God, it's Spider-Man!" And he took his mask off and he was like, "Just kidding, it's Spider-Kid." And I was so dead.
I can respect it though, like,
dude. I can respect the fact that he just straight up owned up to like, I am Spider-Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's a Spider-Man fan, he owns up to it. Like, that's pretty cool. I respect it.
Yeah.
I wish we had like funny people like that around Halloween.
Did you guys see that Pennywise meme? Like that kid wearing the skin tight Pennywise suit?
Oh, but it's just like, it's just the print. There's no like three-dimensionality to it.
There's no three-dimensionality. Yeah,
I'm gonna put in.
People like that show up when I worked at Spirit Halloween.
There was a kid wearing that exact thing. He walked in through the door and he was like, "Trick or treat," and I tried so hard to not laugh in that 5-year-old's face.
No, I just like to imagine. I was gonna imagine Tweez sitting there playing a demo, some game or whatever, and he just hears the fucking bell to the door go like, "Bing ding," and he hears "Twick or tweet," and you just turn, you're like, ah! like what the fuck is that? Like a whip a control. You're just like a whip a controller at it.
Oh my fucking God.
I was just sitting there looking at the computer monitor, the computer monitor, just doing what I do whenever there's nobody in the thing. Just ding dong, Twick or tweet, and I just see a living meme standing in front of me.
The only people that would like actively go when I worked at Spirit Halloween that would actually show up are either people who are freaks or people who are coming in with their child to scare them with the animatronics on purpose.
Or the third category, which is a subset of freaks, which is the people that went there for all their Five Nights at Freddy's merch.
Oh, fuck off.
You can't deny it.
I only have ever worked registers 3 times in my life. It was not good. It was so bad. It was very not good. And they were like, okay, just man the changing station. I'm like, okay. And some lady was like, I'm going to try all these on. I'm like, okay, have fun, do whatever, I guess. Just bring them back after. And she like came out and was being very adamant on being like, man, this doesn't fit me. I wish this fit me because my boobs are too big. I wish these fit me. Oh my God, because my boobs are so big. I'm like, that's crazy. Can I have the thing back so I can put it up on the rack, please? And she's like, oh my God, I would. I just hope I didn't stretch it because my boobs are so big. I'm like, that's crazy. I want to go home. I'm like, I get a half hour for lunch and I walk to Burger King. I want to leave.
You should have been like, ma'am, I work at a Spirit Halloween. I do not get paid enough to deal with you.
Paid enough to be horny, ma'am. Please leave me alone.
Man, why are you
Please.
horny in Spirit Halloween?
God.
Dude,
fuck
speaking of horny,
Huh?
there was there's this one time, a lot of, for lack of a better term, kids just come in to buy currency. That's like the number one
V-Bucks.
customer that comes in.
Fortnite V-Bucks.
Yeah, there's so many kids that come in and
Toontown
buy
subscription.
Please.
Toontown subscription. Give me the Spotify. No, it's always PlayStation. It's always $10 PlayStation cards. That is the number one thing that I sell.
That's how kids
I
buy their
believe it.
drugs.
They trade PlayStation cards at school. So a kid came in, and he was like, I want some currency. And I was like, all right, cool. And he was like, actually, I want to get $20 of currency. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And it's like, do you want the physical card, or do you want me to just print it off like on the receipt? He's like, the receipt's fine, but I just want to look around a little bit. And I was like, all right, cool, take your time. So he's just looking around. I get the order ready, and I'm just sitting there. Nobody else is in the store. It's just me and whoever was working with me at the time. So we just start talking about video games. Wow, crazy. Why would you do that at GameStop? While the guy is just looking around. And then he's like, all right, I'm ready. So then he comes over and he starts to buy his currency. As he's doing that, this lady comes in. She looks like she's like 60 or 70, and she comes in and she's like, oh hey, that's my grandson right there. I hope you're doing good. He ain't giving y'all any trouble or nothing, right? And I'm like, no ma'am, he's just looking around shopping. And she's like, oh okay. And then this is the first time she looks at me, and she gets a glimpse of me, and she's like, oh my god, you are so gorgeous, happy new year baby. And I'm like, thanks ma'am. And she's like, all right, you have a good time, grandson. And she's like, okay. And I'm just sitting there like, did I just get hit on by this man's grandma? Just did not know how to
Hey man,
react.
you just take that compliment and you keep it going for the rest of your day. That shit keeps you going.
Three, two things. One, rock that compliment, man. Two, I feel like she was trying to hustle you out of some more V-Bucks.
Yeah,
Like, man, if I butter this
$25 worth of
Yeah. What you don't know?
If I butter this man up, to give my grandson more money.
No, what you don't know is they were running a scam. She buttered you up, and while you were distracted, that kid just robbed the store.
Yeah.
No. I
definitely gave that kid a blunt from behind the GameStop after my shift.
No, I have a story of that. Like, I didn't work at so it's that normal GameStop. About that normal GameStop I go to. I was there when some the one that fucked over my order. It was when the older manager was working there. So sure enough, me and him were just sitting there like just shooting the shit, just talking. And suddenly this kid just fucking runs out of the store into the parking lot. And one of the coworkers was like, he just stole like 3 games. And so the manager, yet again, we'll call him Joe. Joe was like, oh shit, where'd he steal him from? He just grabbed him off the shelf and ran. He's like, so he opened the door and said, hey, dumbass, he stole 3 plastic containers. Have fun.
Yeah.
So because like I guess that kid didn't know. It's like, hey, you're like, those are just for looking. Like
those are display. Yeah.
They're in a locked cabinet. And so he just yelled at him like, hey, dumbass, you just stole 3 containers, like plastic containers. Have fun.
God.
And he's like, I'm recording too, so like, don't bother.
Back on the OSHA violations.
Yeah, let's if you're gonna start throwing out OSHA violations, not mention where you worked.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No, I want them to burn.
Jimmy John's.
I'm just gonna I want to let you know, I'm gonna dub that over with me saying Jimmy John's.
Yeah, hold on. Jimmy John's. There you go.
Thank you.
Use that tweet soundboard that you have. Don't worry about it. But anyway, when I was working at Jimmy John's, I was building the Jimmy John's, and I had never done anything ever in my life. This was my first job. That our friend from college was like, hey, my dad's friend needs workers. And I was like, okay, I need money. And she's like, cool, talk to him. So I talked to him, and he's like, hey, literally just submit an application, you got the job. I'm like, oh, cool. So then the job is building the Jimmy Johns, and I think I'm like a 2-hour drive from home to get there. So we carpool, and we get there, and I had a biopsy to remove potential skin cancer at the time. So I have stitches in my back, which means you're not allowed to do any heavy lifting. And building a store involves some heavy lifting. So we're working on that. I'm like, hey, so I'm not allowed to move more than 10 to 15 pounds at a time. Like, oh, cool. We don't want to get sued. You're going to build all the point of sale systems. So I have to teach myself how to struct computers on the fly. So that was fine. I'm like, this is cool. I'm getting paid minimum wage, which is totally fine by me for now. And then they're like, oh, cool, it's raining out. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm going to keep building computers, which apparently was not good enough, because they're like, no, you're going to help unload the truck. I'm like, hey, so I got that whole stitches thing. They're like, where's the doctor's note? Where's the doctor's note? I'm like, oh, I gave it to my manager. They're like, oh, you didn't give it to me? I'm like, okay. And they're like, so I don't know anything about your doctor's note. I'm like, you what? And they're like, yeah, I don't know anything about your doctor's note. I haven't seen it. Your manager has it.
Dude,
I don't.
I feel like if you handed them the doctor's note, they would have just ripped it and been like, damn, that's crazy. You don't have one.
You literally
Where's your doctor's note and give it to them. They pull out a comically large lighter and light it on fire.
I'm just over here like, okay, I guess I haven't got no doctor's note.
Yeah, they throw you like
so I'm out in the rain, stitches in my back, and they're like, oh, we only have half an hour to unload this 200-box truck. I'm like, oh, how are we going to do that? They're like, catch. So they just start throwing 25 to 40-pound boxes out the back of the truck into my hands in the rain for half an hour straight. And as I catch them, I have to throw them into the building. And we go and they do like a checkup on my back. They're like, oh, it looks like your stitches got tugged a little. I'm like, I have no idea how that happened.
It's like, I wonder what made it done that.
I'm like, I don't know how that could be.
Oh my god.
And the way of them being like, okay, you have a week to build each store. I had to build 2 of them. Their way to enforce that was anybody that works here that doesn't finish building the store by the end of the allotted time is fired.
That sounds illegal.
So what you're telling me is you had a challenge from an episode of Survivor to see who got voted off of the fucking island.
Yeah. And
just voted off the construction site.
So that then moved into, we finished that store in 1 week and 1 day, and they sent corporate down to yell at us on repeat while we're building the store. And we're literally just like merchandising, scanning tickets, putting everything on the racks. It was awful. And then we get to the next store, which is an even longer drive. So we get there, we're working on that one, and they're like, we don't like how long it took you guys on that last store. You got to be faster than that. So we're like, okay. So they're like, no 15-minute breaks. We're like, I'm sorry. So there was 0 15-minute breaks at all any single day. We barely got lunch breaks. And one day I'm working in the truck, which we then find out is full of mold. The entire thing is full of mold.
Word.
Like, oh, you're fine. So I have to work in this truck. And I'm like, that's cool. Can I go out and breathe for a minute? They're like, you got a couple more walls to pull out of that truck. You can do it. So I'm stuck in there, and then a wall falls on my foot. And I'm like, okay, that kind of hurts. And they're like, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So we work a 10-hour day with no 15-minute break and no lunch break. And we just get in the car because we've been up since 2 a.m. and we're just upset and angry. And our boss goes, you guys want me to get you McDonald's on the way home? I'm like, I want to go home, Jeffrey.
Not me, by the way.
Not
you. Different. But I'm like, take me home.
This Jeff.
We just sat in complete silence while I tried to play Pokemon Go on the highway.
Sounds like a great time.
You
And then they're like, yeah, so you're done building 2 stores. We'll let you know. I'm like, can I work retail? And they're like, sure, we'll transfer you to one of the stores. I'm like, thanks, man.
did they?
Well, yeah, I get a call in October after saying they would transfer me in September saying, hey, why haven't you showed up to work? And I'm like, huh? They just didn't tell me. And then it comes around to November and I haven't got my schedule in a while. I'm like, hey, so what's the plan? They're like, oh yeah, we're done. I'm like, we're done? They're like, yeah, we're done. Do you want to come in and help pack up? And I'm like, no.
What the fuck?
I was gonna say, I love when like jobs will like just literally curveball you something when you get in for that day. So the other job I had was I worked at a printing company. And I got in one day and they're like, hey, so you know what you're doing today? And I'm like, yeah, I got to take these cards, you know, sort them all out, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, nope. And I was like, okay. And they're like, yeah, all these barrels are building up. We need to throw them away, but they can't be thrown away. Like all the like residue on the inside has to be put into like one thing. And then those have to be thrown in like recycling. And I was like, okay. So this is going to suck. So just like, I was like, lay it out in front of me. And they were like, you need to take a sawzall and cut all these barrels in half. Mind you, they're like they're like those like industrial drum size barrels.
Like half the size of you.
Yes. So they're like cut them in half. Cause like, you know, we don't want you like reaching down. I'm like, no, I get that. So I like cut them in half. So I have like 2 halves that I'm essentially scrubbing clean. One of my coworkers came out cause he's like, I see you're having a fun time today. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like cutting through a barrel with a sawzall and it got caught on the cardboard and it yeeted the barrel across the back storage room. like the sawzall went like, boom, and like launched the barrel. And I was like, oh, neat.
Hell yeah.
See, here's the thing.
Wild.
That job was like boring and mind numbing in like the work I had to do on a daily basis. The highlights though, didn't talk to people and I just threw on like music or audiobooks when I worked. It was nice.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
That's like that's my current job. Like,
yeah.
Cause my only like social interaction at my job now is like, if someone asks me, it's like, hey, I need some filing done. I'm like, oh, for sure. Like, just let me know what I'm picking up or like, what am I grabbing you or what I'm putting away. So either give me a list or email it to me. And then when I take calls, that's it. Besides that, I put in earbuds, music or a podcast, maybe this podcast later so I can hear us all again. Then I'll just, do whatever and walk around the office and do whatever I have to do before I have to clock out.
Dude, that sounds lovely. What wasn't lovely is what I did before GameStop. GameStop was
oh my god, yeah.
My real first job, but I worked for an event staffing company because my mom, they really liked my mom. She worked there for like a year or 2 before, and she was like, well, my son needs a job. Can he work here? And they were like, sure. I'm not gonna say their name because I don't
dox them.
Okay, so their name was they were an event staffing group and they would staff places at like Soldier Field is a big stadium in Chicago and some like places that would need a lot of people to work there because there's so many like working moving parts in like how a stadium would run or like a concert hall and stuff like that. So instead of just hiring 1,000 people to work at Soldier Field only when there's games, they would hire a company to hire people. And so there was going to be a game at a football game, and they were like, all right, we need cooks, we need this, that, and the other, and we need people who are gonna bring people food in their little like suites, the high-end stands that are like basically a hotel room inside the studio or inside the stadium. And my mom was like, I'm gonna apply for a cook, and I was like, you know what, I will too. So we both applied to be a cook, and we got there at like 11 in the morning, and we stood in line to sign up. We had to sign up physically on a clipboard for when we got there. And when I got there, I was like, all right, what line am I? And it was like, oh, name, and I'm like, oh, my name. And they're like, all right, cool. You're gonna be a sweet runner, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like cook. They're like, oh yeah, we saw that you signed up for cook, but we didn't want you to be a cook, so you're a sweet runner now.
What the fuck?
And I was like, okay, cool. What does that entail? And it was like, oh, you're basically gonna be giving, like, there's gonna be an order for food, and you're gonna go take that food to whoever ordered it. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's fine.
So you're a waiter.
Yeah,
I'm
usually
essentially a waiter, but instead of taking it from the kitchen to somebody in the same building as me, I'm taking it from a kitchen to a hotel room.
Oh.
Essentially, I'm a bellhop. I'm room service. That was what I was. And so we go through all the stuff, and there's multiple floors. I get sent to the freezer rooms on level C, and I'm like, okay. And I get there, and the dude who's running the freezer is like, don't worry, they're only gonna have you bring stuff from to level C. You're gonna be giving people stuff on level C and level B. And I'm like, oh, I only gotta go through one flight of stairs. That's all right. He's like, you don't even have to use the stairs. The elevator's here. And I was like, oh, cool. This is gonna be way easier than I thought. So I was just doing the thing or whatever. And I'm like, oh, how long are we gonna be here? And it was like, oh, until the game ends, and then we're gonna clean up afterwards. I was like, okay, how long do football matches last? He's like, I don't know. We're probably gonna get out of here at 2 a.m. And I'm like, 2 a.m. I got here at noon. Okay. So I'm doing it or whatever. Sweet running kind of sucks, but whatever. I was getting paid more money than I've ever seen because this was the first job I ever had, and I didn't have to pay taxes on it.
nice.
So it was pretty good. I was just doing my job, and then they were like, all right, then you should take this to level D. And I was like, they said I was only going to do C and B. And they're like, no, you go anywhere now. So it went from A to F. And they were like, no, you could take it, you take it anywhere. If they order it, you take it. And I was like, oh, okay. So somebody ordered a 12-pack of soda and a large pizza.
All right.
And,
Nice.
And
Oh, I bet it was Cheese Man.
Packs worked. Cheese Man. Now, the way that the 12 packs worked, I guess at Soldier Field, if you order them, is that they cut them in half.
Mm-hmm.
So you get 6 cans. So if somebody orders, just 6 cans, you don't have to do it before it's already cut in half. So instead of having a whole 12-pack, I had 2 6-packs.
2 halves.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude,
I had 2 6-packs
this person
and the large
probably
pizza.
this person was probably confused why you ripped the 12-pack in half.
Probably. But I was, as I said before, I was on level C. I had two 6-packs and a large pizza. And so I was like, oh, okay, where am I taking this? Level A. And I'm like, oh, 2 flights of stairs. Okay. So I go to get a little dolly thingy, like the not waitresses, hello. Room service have fancy hotels. I got one of those things. I put the pizza and the 2 6-packs on there, and I started heading towards the elevator. And I have been working for 3 hours now. This dude wearing a suit who I have not seen in those 3 hours comes out of nowhere and goes, "Oh, what you doing?" And I'm like, people on level A need this stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, but what are you doing?" I was like, "Gonna take the elevator."
Taking it
He's
there.
like, no. You don't take the elevator. The elevator's for big orders. I was like, okay. He's like, and you don't need the dolly anyway. You got 12-pack and just carry it. And I'm like, okay. So what I did was I had the 12-packs extended along my arms.
Mhm.
The 6-packs rather.
No.
Extended along my arms, and I'm holding them out just away from my chest, and I placed the pizza on top of them.
Mhm.
And then I went downstairs like that. and it sucked because contrary to what you might believe about Soldier Field, the access stairs are minuscule. I am a relatively rotund man, and I could barely fit in there with this newly found pizza box that is an extension of my body. So I made it down the stairs as quickly as I could, and I get all the way to level A, and then there's this pretty woman standing outside the door that I'm supposed to go in, and I'm like, oh hi, and she's like, oh hey, is this for this room? And I was like, yeah. And she goes in, she takes it and goes in there, and then she comes back out with the pizza and some money. What I didn't know was that there is a job specifically for pretty females called a suite attendant, and you're kind of just there at a room. That's your room, and you take credit for what the suite runners do, and they give you tips.
She's just a straight middleman.
Jesus.
Yeah. Damn.
But see, up until this point, for the 3 hours, I would just go in and put it in there because whoever ordered it was like just watching the football game.
Yeah.
So you come in, and there was like the area where food was, and then there was a little lip down like 1 or 2 steps, and then a huge window. People would be sitting in front of that window, not even notice that I came in, and I would just put stuff in the fridge and walk away.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I saw this lady. She came back with the pizza and some money, and I was like, oh. First off, I was upset about the pizza, or not the pizza. Hello, the money. But then she handed me the pizza back, and I was like, why? And she was like, they said this was the wrong pizza.
Oh my god.
They ordered a medium pepperoni pizza. This was like a large, one of deep dish like things. So she was like, yeah, this is the wrong pizza. I need you to take it back. Sorry about that. And I was like, it's no problem, ma'am. So I bring it back up there. And that dude in the suit who told me that Lamau, you can't use an elevator, idiot.
Yeah.
He's there. And he's like, what are you doing with this pizza? And I was like, they said it was the wrong one. And he's like, oh, okay. I got it. You can give me that pizza? I'm like, okay. He takes the pizza and he tosses it in the trash. And I'm like, oh.
What a waste.
I was like, why'd you do that? And he was like, yeah, if I catch any of you eating that, you're going to get sent home without pay. I'm like, oh, what? Oh, okay, whatever, I guess. So then I'm kind of upset about that. And then I asked one of the people who I was working with, by the way, when do we get to eat? And he's like, oh, 8 o'clock. I was like, in the afternoon? He's like, yeah. It's like 3:30 at this point. And I'm like, huh. It's like, do we get any, like, a break to, like, get a little snack or something? And he's like, you get to go to the bathroom. And I was like, huh. So me and this dude who were talking about, like, we don't get to eat for 5 hours. He was like, I got an idea. I'm starving. What if we just stand in front of this trash can, right? One at a time. I'll stand in front of it first, right? And you just open the box and grab a slice and then run to the bathroom. The pizza's still fine. It's in the box. It'll be good, right? And I was like, all right, sure, but I'll stand first. You seem hungry. You get it. He's like, okay. So I'm just standing in front of the trash, just waiting for another order. And he just slowly sneaks up past me and standing to me, and he dips down, grabs the slice, and bolts into the bathroom and locks it. And I'm like, all right, cool. It comes back out like a minute or two later, and he's like, that was some good fucking pizza, dog. And I was like, all right, let me get a slice then. I did it too.
You guys are fucking like,
and he was
crackheads.
Not lying. It was some good pizza.
I like to imagine the guy in the suit did not work there and was just fucking with you.
I imagine that too. Bro, I'm kind of glad that the stadium I worked at was the polar opposite. They, like, especially with us, because I was more or less like a maintenance kind of guy when I worked there, because I've worked there for like 4 years, and I was everywhere. So sometimes I'd be back there in the kitchen. Sometimes we'd just like, it's like, hey, can you help, like, get trash around? And I'm like, yeah, I don't mind. And then like other times it's like, oh, can you just, like, we don't want you to clean the bathrooms. Can you just, like, replace the rolls? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And man, So there was like in the back part of the stadium, it's called the Chevrolet Terrace, and it was like a buffet type area, and you just tell them it's like, hey, I want this, 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 and that, and they'll give it to you on a plate, and you get like as many drinks as you want. Well, that ticket to go back there is like $30, and workers like who were working, specifically like me and like a couple other people who were like on ground, we just go up there like probably like a half an hour before they close for the night, which was usually like since the baseball stadium, like probably like it's the sixth inning or so, so like halfway through the game. They'd start to close up. Yeah. And man, they did not give a shit. They're like, what up? What do you want? Like, we'll make you a plate. And I'm like, oh, sweet. So I'd be like, oh, can I get like, you know, like a burger with like, you know, potato salad and like a water or something like that? And they're like, yeah, for sure. And they give you like and then, you know, they hook you up since you work there. And since I've been there long enough, like I make really good connections with a lot of people there. So like I know like all like the main chefs and all that work there, which is really cool. So I haven't worked there for 2 years now. And when I still go back there, I'm like, hey, like is so and so here still? Like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, bro, pull up, like come, like I'll make you a plate for free. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I like, cool. Yeah. So when I go back to that stadium anytime, I'm just kind of like, hey, is so and so here? Or hey, is so and so's wife here? And they're like, yeah, what's up? Like, we'll make you a plate. I'm like, sweet. And so I like literally, I'm like, God, working here for like 4 years, like starting my job at the stadium when I was like 14, 15 and working there for like 4 years, I believe. I was like, this is worth it. Make good connections.
So
yeah, the people who actually worked at the stadium were really cool. It was just the company.
So
yeah,
Andrew and I have a friend who was also my roommate sophomore year in college, who worked at our the stadium in the city where we went to school.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to go into detail in the story, but I'll sum up pretty simple.
Is it the Dead Mouse?
Yeah, so Dead Mouse came to play at that stadium.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. Our friend and my roommate at the time, I love him, but he can have a tendency to no filter himself, and he no filtered trashing because he doesn't like Dead Mouse, and he was trashing it and the fans on Twitter. And honestly, I'm like, I don't agree, but honestly, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
People were finding out and tweeting at Dead Mouse that some guy working the stadium was shit talking him. And Dead Mouse started getting into the Twitter fights with our friend and ended up getting him fired that night.
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Dead Mouse got him fired. And honestly, so I'd like to preface, I got to hear firsthand about this because I'm sitting in the dorm. I'm chilling in my room. I got the door open to the common area. I hear the door open. I hear it close, and I hear, okay, who wants a story? And I go, what's up? And he goes, Dead Mouse just got me fired. And I went, you have to speak again because that is a sentence.
That's fucking epic. Like I would not give a shit if I got fired because I'm Dead Mouse. That'd be funny.
He was so happy, and he's like, am I kind of upset I got fired? Yeah. Do I really care with how it happened? He's like, no, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm like, honestly,
that's something you're proud of.
That is amazing. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that is like that's like a once in a lifetime type of deal where it's like, dude, you wouldn't believe how I got fired from my job. Like,
of course, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't have the job anymore.
So that kind of leads me into another topic, is we should consider wrapping this one up right now.
Yeah.
Unless
actually, can I end this podcast with one of my favorite all-time stories I like to tell?
Yeah, I was gonna say though, after the talk about like stadiums and work and stuff like that, I figure another good topic, because I imagine we've all had experience. Fun convention stories is like another way to just start one. I think that's got to be a good episode, because I already got like a bullet point of stuff that I've experienced.
I have a list that can go down for that.
So
to wrap up this one, I want to tell you guys my all-time favorite story of when you guys know what Sam's Club is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I had to work at a Sam's Club, and what I mainly did there was I was the person who would have to go outside, load trucks, load cars, like any kind of vehicle. I would be loading it, and then I would unload like big semis and throw shit into the store. and I would also have to like collect carts. Well, they're like, hey, we have a gas station. You should work at the gas station. I'm like, all right, bet. Like that's like the one time I don't have to do physical labor, and it's just literally like I walk around, and every once in a while I'll get flagged down. It's like, oh, my member card does not get like, is it reading? I'm like, oh, well, it's probably because you entered it wrong. Or, and if they didn't, then I just take the company one and boom, fix it, and they'd be like, yay, thanks. I'd be on my way. My two other jobs I had to do there was I would have to like, you know, gas prices change like daily almost.
Yeah.
Not a tremendous amount, but you know, like a 1 or 2 cents. I'd have to change like a little sign by the curb, and then like every once in a while we get like gas delivery, so I'd have to like do the paperwork for that, which it's really simple. So it's the weekend of 4th of July, and a lady yells at me because I just got done doing the paperwork and saw the truck guy off, like who delivered our gas. I was like, all right, cool. Put the clipboard back and everything, and she yells at me. I was like, oh fuck. Like maybe she, you know, maybe I didn't hear her. So I walk over. She's like, you come over here right now, young man. I was like, all right, well, see what shitstorm I'm getting into. She's like, why did you raise the gas prices? I look at her and I said, come again? And she said, yo, she said, why did you raise the gas prices? I said, ma'am, what? I was like, ma'am, like, not to be rude, but what makes you think I rose the gas prices? It's like, well, the sign out in front says it's like 210. Right now it's 225. I was like, oh, well, you know, it's Friday, and like from my experience, gas will change like Friday or Saturday. It's like exponentially. And she was like, well, I don't appreciate that you changed gas when I got here. And I looked at her like dumbfounded. I said, ma'am, I have no control over this. And I said, and not to be rude, but it's a holiday weekend. Of course, gas is going to be even more expensive than usual. Like, I'm sorry that inconvenienced your day. So she gets out of her car, and this is the part that kills me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a power move or she's trying to be intimidating. She had a chihuahua that was like the size of a loaf of bread, like just chunky dog. And she had it under her arm, and she walked out and she was like, I'm going to need your name, and where's your manager? I was like, oh, well, my name is Seth, and if you want to go inside, there is a little desk that will like that you can complain to, and they'll call the manager. And if I like, they can call me out there if you need, like, if they need me. She's like, well, I'll let you know, Seth, due to you raising gas prices, you're going to be fired by the end of your shift. And I just told her, I said, I sure am looking forward to that. And she drove off, and I lost my shit too, because I was like, her tags were from Texas. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing in Michigan? Driving like you're gonna spend there's gonna be a hole in your wallet from gas driving from Texas to Michigan.
Do you know what that was? She was an oil baron, and she didn't like
she didn't like it.
She did not like the competition, Seth, because
I guess
because you are clearly an oil baron, and you control
the gas prices.
you control the rate at which gas rises.
I guess, but then it does like other thing too was like, do you guys know like that type of group, like the dance moms?
Yeah. Oh god, yeah.
That was what her fucking car was bedazzled with. Like, I am a dance mom. I'm like, oh god. So like, no wonder she was bratty.
Jeez.
I was like, well, neat. And my favorite though, there was like this really like he was pretty normal. Like he come like twice a week. He was like 2 booths over. He was like, damn, that sucks. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. I'm looking forward to what happens. I get a call on my radio. It's like, hey, Seth, are you outside? I was like, yeah, what's up? He's like, I'm going to be out there in a couple minutes. So, you know.
Did you raise the gas prices?
Yeah. So we walked out here. He walked out here, and he was one of the cooler managers I was cool with. I was not good with like almost all of them besides 2 of them. Thankfully, he was there. He was like, damn, I heard that you rose those gas prices. I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I saw some Texas lady like came in, and I said, and he was like, yeah, because she came in with her dog, like wrapped under her fat rolls. I was like, damn. He's like, that's what she did to me too. And he was like, was that a chihuahua? I was like, yeah. He said, damn, that shit looked like a fucking sack of potatoes.
Nah, bro, that ain't a chihuahua. It's a fucking whole wheat loaf.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, that was a dog. And
damn, where'd you get your dog? I want one gluten-free.
Yeah, get that shit out. Yeah, but he was like, yeah, I'm sorry to get yelled at by her. Like, she ended up throwing a temper tantrum, so we just told her, ma'am, I hope you know, like, we don't control that type of stuff. So she threw a temper tantrum and gave us a little finger and said, I hope your store burns, and she drove off.
Oh my god.
And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And he was like, well, to compensate, I guess, do you want to leave early? I was like, and then my first question, I was like, I want to say yes, but my first question is, do I get paid? He was like, when do you get out? I was like, 3. He looked at his watch. He's like, yeah, I don't care. I was like, bet. I left. I was like, bet, out of here. He's like, all right, have a good weekend. I was like, yep, you too. So that's my favorite story ever working at Sam's Club.
Oh, Jesus.
So I hope that was a good story to leave leave this podcast.
Yeah,
on.
no, I think that was. I feel pretty good about that. Hopefully, if people are listening still at this point, that they enjoyed all that. Obviously, if people want any other specific topics, they can always comment and be like, yeah, talk about this. Even if we're not knowledgeable, we'll still talk about it like we are.
I'll give it a shot. I will refuse to Google for the first 35 minutes.
I will talk about a topic like that I have no knowledge of and gaslight people. I don't care.
I'm pretty good at that.
I think the next one will probably go into something like convention stories, stuff like that.
Oh boy.
At some point we'll move on to probably like a video game as a topic, but every time I think about a video game, 1 out of the 4 of us does not know about it.
Well, that makes it even better.
That makes it even better. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone, and I don't know, how the fuck do you want a podcast?